Sly, your favorite neighborhood therapist. Having real hard convos, contrasting pessimists. Generational trauma explored, broach delicate. Getting to the root of the pain, healing impediments. Every week signs copay, free lessons. Bet on self, trust the process, no questions. Feel your feels, journey to be healed, no stressing. Conversations with Coach Lies now in session.
Smoke house, it's the urban heat. Shout out to Coach Live.
Coach LA's time to listen to conversations that's gonna keep you winning. Sunday nights at 10 p.m. on the urban heat, just call it. Conversations with Coach La 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 La. Coach La 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 La. If you got something on your mind, you can call in, you can hit a line. She the realest, ooh, she the realest. You can tap in, now always get a business to empower you, so that you can do every and anything that you want to. Kicking in with Coach LA's time to listen to conversations that's gonna keep you winning. Sunday nights at 10 p.m. on the urban heat, just call in. Conversations with Coach La 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 La. Coach La 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 La.
Hey, good evening, and welcome to another episode of Conversations with Coach La La La, your favorite around the way therapist. How y'all feeling tonight? Well, Boston has given me some warmer weather, and for all of you guys that suffer with seasonal depression, this is great weather for me. So I am in a good space because the sun is out. It was about 50 degrees today, and that made me very happy. Shout out to Julia Mejia. She did her Women in Power Summit today that I attended. Shout out to Amanda Shea, and we had Tanisha Sullivan. There was a great panel of people. I did a little bit of shopping, which I probably shouldn't have done, but retail therapy makes me feel good. So I bought some stuff. I also want to give a big shout out to my Urban Heat family as we continue to navigate and grieve the legendary Mark Harris, the voice. Tonight has been very sad coming into the studio and him not being here and greeting me with the "Hey baby, how you doing?" and giving out the shout outs to everybody from the Soul's Place. I know tonight all of the listeners are grieving not hearing his voice. So I just want to give love and shout out to all of our listeners because I know you guys are grieving with us. So what else have I been up to? Well, life is pretty good overall. I am navigating both joy and grief simultaneously. So tonight's show, as we end Women's History Month, is Dear Women, an open letter from men. And, as I think about the recent loss of Mark Harris, he was a man in my life that served as a fatherly figure, uncle, brother, mentor that was very positive. And at the same time, he was holding a lot and he was navigating a lot. And it got me to thinking about, how we can, as women, be more supportive, more understanding. So ladies, tonight is a night for you to receive, to not react. Tonight is a night for men to be vulnerable with us on this show. And I hope that when you listen to the show tomorrow, the next day, next week, or next month, or when you download it when it's available on all podcast platforms, that my two guests will serve as a vessel, a mirror. What else would I would say? I really respect both of them a lot because of their personal journeys and their ability to reach men in all spaces. They've been doing a lot of work in a lot of different areas in the community. And so I thought, why not bring these two coming from two different platforms, but they are a dynamic duo. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about both of them before I bring them on to the virtual couch. They said they was a little nervous, But I promised them that I don't bite. And therapy, virtual therapy with Coach is always going to be therapeutic. And this conversation is not just about romantic relationships, but just relationships in general. And I want it to be a way to gain some skills about interpersonal relationships and communication skills. And last but not least, some understanding, right? I think that's the source of building the bridge between gender relations is understanding. So first up, who we have for joining me on the virtual couch is a gentleman who's been here a couple of times. We've also done a lot of work together. I can't believe it's been a couple of years that me and Mr. Lambert have done work together, but he goes by Third Exposure online. Most of you guys who follow him probably know he's an engagement specialist. And not only is he an engagement specialist, he's a community leader, and he's a systems change advocate. Since we started changing the wording for DEI and all of that, I think he got really innovative and creative with how he explains this. But he works across education and leadership spaces to dismantle harmful systems and empower communities, which is deeply rooted in Black male, even though tonight we're not focusing on just Black people, but Black male leadership, mentorship, and equity work. I would say if I had to put it into a one sentence, he is a man who understands both systems and relationships. So I want to bring on to the virtual couch up first is Mr. James Lambert III. How you doing, James? All right, let me turn your mic on first. Oh, sorry. Oh, I'm gonna turn that one on. Hey, say that again now.
Yeah, them nails you gotta get in the way.
How you doing? I know, right? But listen,
good. I see you studied. No, it's good to be back. How's
okay? Everything's good on my end. As I said earlier, I'm navigating both grief and I'm navigating joy, and just really sad at the same time. So I got a plethora of emotions. But I love doing this show. As you guys know, this show is rooted in my father's legacy of telling me to bet on myself. So I do this show every week in a way to be close to him, because I know he's up in heaven like, yeah, that's my baby girl right there on radio. So
no, that's dope. The grieving process is tough, especially making meaning of it. That's what helps to restore that value.
Yeah, so it definitely does.
Condolences about Mr. Harris as well.
Yes, that's been really tough. So that's our second radio station colleague to pass away since this year started. We also lost Talise Rivers, and they both died from pancreatic cancer. So it's been a tough hit for the radio station. Both dynamic pillars, leaders in their own right. So we are definitely hurting big time over that. So hold that thought, Mr. Lambert, right? Because I'm going to bring up our next guest. Now, some of y'all may or may not know this next guest, but I've been watching him from afar. One of my first opportunities to get acquainted with him was when he did the TEDx here in Roxbury. And he does very motivational videos where he talks about mathematics, right? I'm giving you a clue, right? But he's always talking about today's mathematics, right? So I want to learn a little bit more about that. But he's a motivational speaker. He's also a spoken word artist, so we share that in common. And he's a recovery advocate, which that is really, really important, because a lot of people don't understand how many people are in recovery and what is involved with that. He's a survivor of addiction, incarceration, and multiple overdoses, which he talks about vividly on his page and through his story. If you've ever heard him speak about his life. But he's now transforming that pain into purpose. He works in recovery spaces and speaks about healing, accountability, and reinvention. If I had to summarize him into one sentence, he's a man who lived it, lost it, rebuilt it, and now teaches it. So without further ado, I want to bring onto the virtual couch, mathematics.
Peace to the queen. Good to be here.
And now I got your mic on. How you doing?
Peace to the queens. Honored to be here.
Yes, I love your voice. I got a thing for men with nice voices. So
Please,
don't think I'm hollering or nothing. I'm just saying, I got a thing for nice voices. Now I'm already looking at this Instagram, and it's already got me looking all crazy on the screen. So I'm trying to get the right. Now I don't see James. James, take your camera and move that lever up so that they can see your face. A little bit more. Keep going. Go a little faster. A little faster. Yes, I know. But for Instagram, not that high. Come down a little bit.
I didn't touch it. You said it.
Come down just a little bit. Okay. All right, everybody in the chat, on every place, everywhere. Can y'all see both of these gentlemen's faces? Thumbs up. All right. I'm trying to work with these multiple platforms and they all look very different. So at least now you can see each other. So thank you both for coming. So this is season 9 of Conversations with Coach La. And this show is all about debunking myths and stigma about mental health. And believe it or not, mental health is connected to everything that we do, just like physical health. So a lot of times we start talking about mental health, first thing people start thinking is that somebody's crazy or something's wrong with them. But it's not about that. It's really about how do you cope, how do you navigate the world, and how do you navigate systems, people, and all that good stuff. Season 9, for me, is my chapter 50. I told you guys earlier I'm 49, I'll be 50 this year. So I thought to myself, how do I really think about milestones, about healing, about elevation and evolving as I reach this really big number, the big 50, right? And that's what inspired this last show to end Women's History Month, is that gender relations is an ongoing topic, right? Be it your brother, be it your dad, be it your absentee dad, be it a partner, uncle, or just men in general that you work with, right? You talk about women who have a male boss or a male colleague. It's just always these dynamics we just seem to not really get it, right? Men don't feel understood, women don't feel understood, and we just miss the mark. So tonight's conversation is really about how do we build those bridges, pun intended, because that's one of the things is that you do, James, is about bridging conversations, right? So you both are dynamic speakers, and you've been doing a lot of work in the space with men. So I wanted to bring you both to the virtual couch to help me have this conversation, because I thought you both would bring different perspectives. Before we jump into that, though, I gave the people a little bit about who you are. I like you both to just tell the listeners, who are you beyond what they can find online? Something interesting, something that would be surprising for them to know about your individual personalities, to have a little bit of an icebreaker before we get into this hot topic. Either one of y'all can go first. Y'all want to flip a coin?
You want to go?
So James, you want to go first?
So
who is James Lambert III?
God, friend, man, father. Start there. I would say son, brother, all that good stuff.
Something that we wouldn't think, obviously. We think you're probably...
I just always want to say, I hate when I don't mention my baby girl, my fear of God first. I feel like I'm putting the cart before the horse when I say that other ways. I would say somebody trying to practice courage and innovation to get the situation right. Period.
Courage and innovation to get the situation right. Now, what's that quote that you put out all the time now?
Yeah, I say, make a decision today with the courage and proud of 5 years from now. I said that because I feel like I always try to lead with a level of I can do it and doing it right. And there were times where I was representing other folks who like to silence the spaces. And I was attacked for doing it, whether I was representing sisters in work communities or just people who had just been oppressed. And when I was attacked, like publicly, economically, financially, whatever you want to call it, it made you question who you were. It makes you like when you go into a cave because it's embarrassing, it's you reach lack of stability, financial, all the things, right? So they get what they want. But then I remember sitting there in those nights at 3 a.m. looking up at the sky, and I questioned whether I want my daughter to fight as hard, to live as loud as I do. And it took a couple of days for me to reaffirm my answer of yeah. So it's about not just this moment how I feel, but how I want to feel when this storm is over 5 years from now. So that's where I kind of got the epiphany, just to say I want to be able to practice courage daily, proud of 5 years from now.
Yeah, I always love that quote that you put out there, because it makes you think about. We say in therapy, play the script to the end, right? And sort of think about how your behaviors now, how's that going to look in the future? Make your future self, proud.
I also sometimes it's just like it's faith too, because sometimes you go register. I'll see I've let fear register before instead of being able to follow through with the faith of something, but then you can't have control over it. You know what I mean? It's a scary branch.
So we're gonna get more into that, because you brought up a good point about fear. And what about you, mathematics? Motivated by mathematics.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm an individual. I'm a mama's man. I used to be a mama's boy, but I've traveled that journey from a mama's boy to a mama's man. I was a baby daddy of 5, but now I'm a father of 5. There is a bridge you got to cross to go from being a baby daddy to a father. I'm also a full-time father now. I work in the recovery field. I do a lot of stuff in recovery spaces. I have 10 years of recovery. September 13th, 2026 this year. I've also been out of prison. I'm a habitual criminal, 15 winters, 14 summers. And I do a lot of stuff around self-care. I do like acupuncture mat every day. I do the sauna. I try to work out every day. I write a gratitude list. I've been writing a gratitude list for close to 2,700 days straight. I journal, and one of my go-tos is the How We Feel app. So I know that I have a Y chromosome that's masculine, but I also know now I'm aligned with my X chromosome that's female. So I have, in order for me to have that balance within myself, I have to deal with both sides of me, which is the feminine side and the masculine side. So that's probably something that a lot of people don't know, that, you know, I practice a lot of self-care, stuff that normally someone from my background wouldn't do. But I found value in pedicures and you know, float therapy and red light therapy. I do red light therapy every day too. You know what I mean? So all that different stuff that normally I wouldn't do, those are some of the things that someone might not be able to recognize from me on social media.
All right. Now, if y'all can already notice, ladies, gentlemen, right? This is probably not what you expected to hear from men, because I think sometimes they get misrepresented. So as we're closing out Women's History Month with reflection, truth, and perspective through the voices of men who are doing the work, healing, and evolving. And that's what I heard from both of you guys, is that you do the work, right? You do the work. I know last time James came on, he talked about being a girl dad and what's involved with that, and just handling her in a soft way, right? And I don't want to quote you wrong, but if I can't put my hands on you, nobody else should. He was talking about that. And I thought that was, that actually went viral. We got a lot of views on that. So a lot of people was resonating with that. So, you know, we talk about therapy on this show. Okay. So we're going to talk about a little bit of therapy, and we're going to get a sense of what you guys think therapy is, right? From your perspective. Good job, James. You already fixing the camera. You mind quick. I love that about you. You already listen. Help us out. So we're going to jump into this, to what does therapy mean in general. So that's going to frame this conversation. And shout out to everybody who's tuned in. We already got a lot of listeners. So shout out to Facebook. Hey, sis. Hello, you, Bella Ray, Sean Jordan. What's going on? Thank you for tuning in. Christopher, what's going on? Coach Chris is in the building. We also got tons of people on Instagram as well. Shout out to all of y'all. I told y'all they got like tiny text. But I see you on Instagram. Thank you for tuning in. Also YouTube. And yes, this is a live show. Somebody on YouTube asked me if this was live. Yes, we are definitely live. So what does therapy mean to you guys, gentlemen? When you think about therapy, how do you frame it?
I think therapy for me is a place for me to get explanations about things that I might not be aware of. It's a dynamic for me, to someone to, you know, give me a perspective from a different angle, and it's an opportunity for me to express myself. But for me, therapy is not enough. I can go to the therapist, and then she can give me the modalities and the actions, the calls to actions that I'm gonna have to take. Because even though I get the therapy and they give me the explanations, I also need a process to give me healing and forgiveness. So I was just telling you before we came on that therapy is one of my weakest points of my recovery and healing journey right now that I need to get more aligned with. But a therapist is definitely peace, but there's also action. Because I always tell people there's 168 hours in a week. A therapist appointment is 55 minutes.
You know, it's about the numbers, y'all. His name is mathematics.
Yeah, so 55.
Start breaking down all these numbers.
So 55 minutes. The therapist can be like, you know, she can be part of my leadership, or he can be part of my leadership, become the best version of myself. But there's also some calls to action that I'm gonna have to step up and take on my own time as well.
Well, that's why I often say I'm not the typical therapist, because I'm about building capacity.
Come on now.
So we can talk about your feelings, emotions. I can validate, but now what?
Exactly.
You know, at what point do you actually learn how to cope and navigate life? Because life is gonna life.
Yeah.
I wish I could say it would be nice people. I wish I could say you wouldn't get disappointed. that somebody's not going to tick you off, you're not going to get angry. But the reality of it is that that is going to happen. So how do you change your relationship with these emotions that scare you, that make you want to flip out? You got to change that. You got to start to really think about how you're going to better navigate that so that you can have control over your nervous system. And then we think about triggers and all these other things that people talk about, but it really comes down to not learning those skills when you were younger, right? You guys had posted a clip from Method Man, and he had talked about like pretty much displaced anger, right? It's something you should be doing on the inside with yourself, but you deflect it out onto other people. Yeah. And I think that comes back to our early beginnings of navigating emotions. If we didn't get that as young people, how are we supposed to handle life when the big stuff starts happening? If you couldn't handle not having your binky anymore, if you couldn't handle no, you can't go outside, if you couldn't handle not getting the sneakers you wanted, and you would throw temper tantrums and nobody taught you how to regulate that, how are you supposed to do it as an adult?
Yes,
right?
exactly.
How are you supposed to do it as an adult? If men are taught to repress their emotions and just act tough all the time and not cry, where do you think that goes? We naturally cry. When you're born, the first thing that knows that you're alive is that you're supposed to cry. That's a sign of life. So how do you go through life and never cry again? Go ahead. Jump in whenever.
No, I affirm everything you just said. Like I think that modeling of, well, I like to call it permission giving, right? So my father had a lot of what's the term that everybody uses? Generational curses he had to break. So as he was building new ones, he didn't necessarily know what he was doing. He just knew he didn't want to put his hands on me the way his father put his hands on him. So he had to converse with me in order not to do it, right? So even right there, that's social emotional wellness. So he taught me how to navigate being able to use words over actions without even knowing how to do it. He just didn't want to repeat. So he modeled for me even saying, I love you all the time. I'm the friend who goes up to a lot of my boys who I haven't seen in a while, and I'll hug them for like 30 seconds, and it makes them uncomfortable. Like, get off me, and I just won't let you go. Right? So breaking that intimacy and that awkwardness a lot of men have. I don't know if you know.
That's not being gay. Giving a hug.
Yeah, right.
Saying I love you, or even telling a guy who looks handsome is, that was considered being gay. For all y'all people, this show was real talk. Before everything changed, that's what we said.
Yeah, so
before y'all try to cancel coach.
But to your point though, that same example you translate it over into what other coping skills you're going to use, right? Not smoking, as opposed to like taking a walk, or even after you eat dinner on Thanksgiving, going for a 1.5 mile walk, as opposed to just sitting down in front of the television. Whatever you do, having somebody model or give permission to normalize it can definitely be the difference between a healthy dynamic and something that might be detrimental. You asked the question earlier. Can I answer about therapy though?
Yeah.
I think about this a lot, right? So I think therapy is like 3 parts. I think it's first, like sometimes you're introduced to something you didn't know that you were doing, right? It might be a pattern. And then I think the hardest part is the combination of being introduced to it, but then owning it. And I think a lot of the therapy is like learning how to navigate it differently. To your point, whatever coping skill or whatever like follow through might be different. I think, in all honesty, I haven't been in therapy since 2020. Yeah, when the pandemic went back, I had to go back into the school system. That's the last time I was in therapy because she could only meet with me at 11, blah, blah, blah. But I'd say I've had friends who were very therapeutic for me because they'll tell you what you need to hear, not what you want to hear. The part, though, that would fail is I hear it, I own it, but then I would navigate it differently.
Right.
I do the same bullshit over and over. Right. I learned. So, and that's why I say, like, to me, that's a combination. Like, what's the innovation? How you gonna do it differently? Right. It's hard to let go of, like, it's just like them same foods that y'all started eating the same.
Right. You know what I'm saying? But it's automatic behavior, so it's almost like you don't have to think about those. Changing it is intentional. Now you got to actually think before you do it. But the other ones are like muscle memory. It's like riding a bike or getting on some skates. You ain't got to think about it. Yeah. That's why it's so easy.
In the groups we do, one of the terms we bring in is neuroplasticity, and that's if you do it consistently, the brain's ability to develop capacity to change.
Now. Talk your talk.
Right. It helps you build confidence in terms of what that safety can be, and then what the feel good can be. Whether it's about setting boundaries.
Yeah. So they're using the big words. I keep relating the terms right now, but they went into the whole neuropsychology. But you're right.
You do it, the more you can change it.
Right. But you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. I love that. I try not to bust out the big words, but that was like the Scrabble. Was that like a 15-point word? 15 point word. That's what we doing. That's what we doing. That's what we doing. But again, tonight's conversation, everyone, this is about not blaming or shaming, but it's about building bridges And I think that's what we need, right? It's not to give a pass for behaviors that are not healthy, but understanding them and comprehending them allows you not to internalize other people's stuff. I think that's the real thing. You all used to talk about, what's that word you used to say? James is another $15, 15-point Scrabble word. Metabolization. You thought I forgot. Right? So, but at the end of the day, we're trying to figure out how do we support people and not take on their energy, not take on their problems, right? So, not men versus women, but how do we show up better for each other? So, I got a question for y'all. And listen, everybody in the chat. What men wish women understood but don't always say? Come on, chat. Because there's men on here.
Asking us in the chat.
Everybody, because I'm gonna put their comments up as they're going. So this is for you, Math, and you, James, and everybody who's listening and watching, because they're doing both. Think about this. What men wish women understood but don't always say?
I feel as though for me, one of the things that through my journey, my 54 years on this planet, is there's some things as men that we know how to navigate, but there's like 4 letters in love and then there's 4 levels. So there's mental, there's emotional, there's spiritual, and there's physical. So you might be able to travel that you might be able to navigate the mental space, the physical space, but a lot of us have never been shown, in order to be a man, you got to see a man. In order to be emotionally regulated, you have to see someone that's been emotionally regulated. In order to know how to process feelings, you have to have seen someone that's processed feelings. So if you've never seen those spaces before, now you're going in. And so I always tell people there's like 3 levels to life. There's dependent, there's independent, and then there's interdependent.
You see what happens when I bring people on here? I didn't know this, but I heard you earlier saying you have a license in drug
counselor, yeah.
You see what happens? And then this one over here, engagement specialist. Told you I'm bringing all y'all Scrabble words. Go ahead.
But like a lot of us, you might still be in the dependent or early in the independent stage.
Right.
So physically, I'm 54,
Right.
but emotionally and mentally, I'm in the independent stage. But then if you're dealing with women, whether it's in the business space, whether it's in a relationship, whether it's family that's in the interdependent space, that's what might be making you a codependent and making a lot of your relationships toxic, because you just don't have the emotional capacity to be interdependent with someone else, meaning like being able to process, share emotions, share feelings, and then care about what the other person has to say. If you're still in the independent or in the dependent phase, you're dependent on other people to keep validating in you. And then if you're early in your independent stage, you're so busy trying to figure out yourself out, you don't have the patience to listen to someone else's stuff. You know what I mean? So to me, it's just realizing that, like, even though you deal with a man and you see a man and he might be coming home with his construction boots dirty and he might have calluses on his hands, that's not what makes him a man in the full capacity, because a man has to be able to navigate all spaces. And so just to realize that, like, if you see us lacking in an area or a space or a level in our life, learn how to talk with us and work with us, rather than talking at us and down on us. You know what I'm saying? Maybe sit there and, offer a book, offer them to get with James and get with a brother like myself. That I'm not saying we got all the answers, but I definitely know how to take accountability for my weaknesses, and that's one of my biggest, strongest points to date.
I'm gonna hold my thought and let you jump in next, James.
Yeah, I piggyback a lot of what he said. I'll say, rephrase again so I can actually respond to it.
What men wish women understood but don't always say?
That I think women are often a part of the enabling. Right? And I'm just saying, like, so for example, wanting to be a part of our change, even though they say they'll accept us as we are, knowing that we're not treating them the way they deserve to be treated per se, or treat ourselves the way we deserve to be treated. But change is difficult, right? And accountability is hard as hell. So my lady actually put me on to this. She was like, the bell hooks part of it about women want us to have a certain method of change and want to be a part of that, even though they'll accept us for how we are in that moment, thinking they can change us. And then when we don't change based on the effort they put in, they mad at us because we ain't changed. Like, you know what the hell I was, right? And we're not doing anything different. You let me kind of go through as I've been going through. There's no real accountability here. So that's why I was coaching times like that part of enabling, right? You let me smell the same, move the same, walk the same, expecting the difference. Was like, no, that's insanity. That's enabling, right? So I think there's a large part of like the change part, because it's definitely difficult. Accountability is hard as shit. And I think that if we're not willing to kind of mandate how we want to be treated and have to forfeit or let go of what we have, we all just.
All right, now, so y'all didn't set a lot, right? And so one of the listeners said, Shea Solutions 52 said, what stages are you both in? If you could share that. So based on what Matt was saying earlier about the dependent, interdependent, and codependent, the 3 levels you just made.
Same again, so I can respond.
The dependent is usually from 0 to 13. The independent is usually from 13 to 21. And then usually interdependence is what people experience from 21 for the remainder of their life. So
if that is to go like that.
If it is to go like that. So because I started my emotional growth at a young age by using drugs and alcohol at 13 years old, and then I have 9 years of recovery, you're looking at a 54-year-old man with the emotional capacity of a 22-year-old. So I have to constantly parent in my program of working on my recovery, my daily personal rituals and routines, emotional regulation, meditation, prayer, journaling. That's how I bridge the gap between my physical age and my emotional capacity. So for me, I'm in the early, I'm like halfway through the independent stage. I'm climbing, but also my attachment style is an avoidance. So I struggle. I've read the book Attached, and I'm an avoidant attachment style, which means that it becomes difficult. I get close, but then I start using these deactivating strategies if you get too close. You know what I mean? I get close, and then I start using, but I'm aware of it. You know what I mean? So awareness is the key to emotional regulation. The more self-aware you are, the more you can emotionally regulate. The less self-aware you are, the more dysregulated you are and like living in chaos and confusion. So I can take accountability, and I can put that, most people go on a date and they say all the good things about them. I think people need to go on more dates and say the bad things, because it's the character defects you accept that keeps the marriage and the relationship together. Everybody, if you cook good and clean good, that's not what keeps the relationship together. It's how much can you accept my BS? You know what I'm saying? And my shortcomings. Go ahead. Chime in.
But doesn't that speak to James' whole enabling thing? And a lot of women struggle.
Well, we got to accept this too.
But
if they talk too much over text.
But that's the struggle, right?
So I've had partners in the past where I felt like they allowed me to do whatever the hell I wanted to. And that was my comfort zone. Right? That control, that was my comfort zone.
Yeah.
It wasn't until I had somebody who really started to hold my feet to the fire, and then the scary part for me was I think I could actually see the future of a family dynamic I wanted, and I wanted to attain it, even though I didn't have the confidence I could. And that's what kind of started to trigger my momentum shift, right? For being pushed to like out of my comfort zone, being pushed to reading more, being pushed to like just telling the damn truth with the fear of what it was going to lose. That shit right there, that to me was like, man, listen, that'd be like taking a finger, like having to tell the just transparent, abundant truth, not knowing what the ramifications were going to be. That was a struggle for mine. You could say, it's from childhood or whatever, but so it's funny because I hear what you're saying. That was I wanted to just like, this don't be no more, blah, blah, blah. But then, like in a lot of ways, I felt I wasn't growing. And I had people that would let me do whatever the fuck I wanted.
Yeah, I got you. I felt like
it was holding me back.
But to a certain extent, in the early stages, again, I don't want to get too much into romantic relationships. That's kind of the dynamic, right? Because you're trying to feel things out. You can't really totally put your foot down in the early stages, trying to figure out if you want to be bothered with the person. So it's like you got to leave space for you to show who you are the way you totally would be. So I don't necessarily think that's an issue, but we often do talk about how much do you tell in the beginning, right? How transparent are you in the beginning before there's safety? Or does that even matter anymore?
Well, can I ask you a question? What's your Achilles heel in the early parts of a relationship?
Communication. So if we start communicating and people just kind of fall off with no real explanation. So things are good, but communicate regularly, the vibe is good, and all of a sudden it's crickets.
Can I ask a question?
So okay.
Oh, my fault. I thought you were done. Finish.
So that for me, prior to my healed self, I would then start saying, what's wrong with me? What did I do? Maybe even pushing a little bit harder, texting a little bit more. It starts with, are you okay? Are you all right? I haven't heard from you. You know, is everything good? Call me back. Like, it's like I'm worried about you phase because we've been talking regularly. And my anxious attachment style before I got to be more of a secure attachment style would start there, and then it would progress into me getting more and more anxious, more and more nervous, to the point that now I'm like ready to cuss people out, right? I'm ready to like, I'm dysregulated. Now I'm like, that says more about you than me. You just stop communicating. I read the room. I'll text you. I'll ask you if you're okay. Leave a voicemail, and then I fall back.
You speak a lot to that when we do the groups.
Yes, so you're using, there's three type of languages. There's intimidation, manipulation, and communication. So you're using communication, but the people that you're speaking about, they might be using manipulation or intimidation. So if I'm in manipulation mode, can sound like love language and it can sound like communication, but it's a form of like me trying to use my words to get into your brain and to get you to do particular things. But then when you want to hold, when you want to hold me accountable, like a woman's supposed to do with a man, my audio can't match my video, and then that's when we start to fall back. Because we're very good with the audio, but it's very hard to get that audio to match that video, meaning like, can your words match your actions? Because I can talk a dog off. This is my fit. I can talk a dog off for weed mag, and I can sell Jordan some mic, and I can sell fire to a fire station, right? But if can the words, can the actions match those words? Is the big question in life.
Right.
Hey, how the Caribbeans do it?
So this is where I've gotten to understand is that because of that, right? And I'm really tapped in with my feminine energy. So I'm able to receive. I'm calm with it. So I'm not pushing anymore. I'm just showing up as my authentic, genuine. My energy is just attracted, right?
Yes.
So when you do that, before it would take me someplace, now I just get even more of my feminine energy. I don't fight it. I don't resist it. I just simply leave you that last message that's on a very high frequency, and I go next. And so what's happening is I'm doing that so much. I'm doing next on a lot of people, not because they can't come back and have a conversation. It's just that I've been told that's intimidating. But what you just gave me was another insight. And what's happening? You can't come to me with the BS, right? And you can also be honest with me, and we can still have a connection. But I'm just not going to probably have sex with you. It's probably not going to go anywhere. We might be good friends because I'm actively listening to what you're saying and what you're telling me.
Gotcha.
But a guy who's looking for somebody that can just do whatever, and that's going to kind of sit around and wait around, I ain't her.
So recording communication versus physical communication is two different languages too. And he was saying something about how he broke the ages down. I thought it was interesting because, you know, the frontal lobe, right? They said it doesn't fully develop till 25.
Yeah.
Correct.
Women are naturally more mature than men.
Right, unless there's, like you said, drug use, some of the things that could potentially tamper that.
But there's still stages in terms of how we respond to things based on experience. Like, you know, if wait and exhale didn't happen, then Stella couldn't have got a groove back. You know what I mean? So I just think that as we age or as we go through certain experiences, also we realize we're less and less inclined to forfeit.
Yeah,
think about it. That's why they call it hindsight. That's why wisdom.
Right. And so, again, I tell often, I say to my clients, we're not starting from scratch, we're starting from experience. However, our brains are like a file cabinet. So everything that you've experienced, it isn't always leading you in the right direction because of triggers and PTSD. Sometimes people read the room totally wrong, and their emotions are so exaggerated that they can mess up a good thing. This is where sabotage, self-sabotaging shows up. Because somebody just not texting you back should dysregulate you immediately.
Rejection is a bitch.
Right? Yeah. But for some people, as soon as that happens, they're already ready to jump out the window and they're saying, well, I already know what this one's going to do. Yeah. Oh, you didn't want to take my number, you didn't want to talk to me, you should have took it. So they're already there without finding out, without pausing, especially in the early stages, like you said, of courting and dating. You don't know this person well enough to know that they're rejecting you yet. You don't know. But patterns, again, your audio not matching your video, if you date them long enough, you start to see that. The trouble is people start to infuse sex and they get connected really quick, and it's harder to, I think, walk away from things because now that those attachment styles start showing up. That avoidant with an anxious attachment, that pull, push, keeps you sort of in the loop of toxicity.
How long did it take you to travel from anxious to secure? Because they say it takes 4 years to change your attachment style.
So I will say this: when I decided to go back to school, because I was originally a life coach first, it took me 4 years. If you think about it, it took me 4 years to get through the program. And I felt like when I went back to get my license in clinical social work, that was more for me than it was for my clients.
Gotcha.
It was a moment of self-discovery for me to understand all my identities and all of myself and what I would be bringing to this work, which is why I'm such a dope therapist.
Come on now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bang, bang, bang.
That's that confidence.
So, all right.
Confidence, not confidence.
I caught that. So let's talk about this. This is something else that came up. You guys have been doing some really good work in the spaces of men and creating these vulnerable spaces for men to get together, which again is something that we don't see often. And there's always a packed house, and they're not for women. So they're 100% for men, right? In the space. There's no women in these spaces, right? So something that came up was emotional shutdown does not equal a lack of love, right? Pressure to be strong does not equal or equals emotional suppression, right? Sorry, I'll say it again. Emotional shutdown does not mean a lack of love. That's the first piece. Pressure to be strong equals emotional suppression. And men are often communicate through action versus words. What are you guys' thoughts on those statements?
Say the second one again.
Pressure to be strong, think about men and the pressure to be strong, equals emotional suppression. So the focus on you being provided as being strong and all of that has led to a suppression of emotions. Because a lot of men have said to me, I can't be vulnerable because then a woman will throw it back in my face. And not just their romantic partner, but sister, mother, like if you're crying, man up, stop being the B word, so there's not a space for men to say it's hard, they don't got it, or there's difficulty. Y'all supposed to just have to figure it out. That's how I look at that when I say the pressure to be strong equals emotional suppression. And men often communicate through actions versus words.
So I'm seeing now you have a lot of brothers coming home from incarceration and like the bridging conversations and a lot of the spaces on social media where you hear men now talking about these difficult emotional spaces and mental health spaces. I also think that a lot of people hyper focus on mental health. I think almost that emotional health can be almost as important or more important than on mental health. But I see like now, I know that I try to make my recovery and my transformation real attractive and sexy so that other people will want it. So I think that now it's starting to become more of a fad or a trend, or it's starting to become attractive to figure out ways to express yourself. And you just kind of need that space. So that's one of the reasons why I create like Class with Math. That's the reason why we went around 7 Stops, 7 Truths. Working with fathers and trying to figure out what it is in the addiction and the recovery piece where we could better serve fathers that are in recovery and what's lacking. And one of the big spaces was we need a co-parenting piece because we don't know how to communicate with women in a healthy way. So it's either we're dominating the conversation and they're being subservient, codependent, and listening to us. We know how to navigate that, or we're manipulating the situation in a particular way where we're willing to get silenced because they might be paying this or paying that. But it's very hard for us to figure out how to form healthy communication with a partner when there's things that we don't like or things that she doesn't like. It usually leads to some type of friction, conflict, chaos, and confusion. So that was really one of the biggest pieces is like we kind of need to figure out a way, one, to mediate our own internal conflicts and then come together with other people, women, mothers, aunts, uncles, sisters, girlfriends, fiancés, baby mothers, so that we can figure out how to better communicate when there's conflict or some type of friction going on in the relationship.
I'll say that so I started doing these spaces because I needed spaces when I was going through a lot of invalidations, feeling inadequate, you name it. So I needed a community. I didn't have one. So I started creating them. I'll say this, from doing so many, a combination of data as well as just observation. Men, yes, want to lead. Men want to be able to lead through action. I think that's what you term it. Like, so they want to lead. They want to be able to take control and provide support. However, oftentimes we don't know how to navigate a thing. And we don't know how to navigate that thing, right? And it's not because we're idiot or incompetent. Sometimes some of these things are new. So, for example, if we don't have the permission granted of seeing somebody, a father, or hearing how a father supported a woman going through postpartum, right? That's actually the first bridging conversation I ever did.
Yes.
If we don't know how to support during that phase, we don't know how to identify what we don't know and create space for. We don't know how to, you don't know. So what happens, the situation gets ruptured. I still want to be here emotionally, so I'm going to go through this physically over here and come back. Right? So many things happen and get discarded. So with the bridge conversations pieces, the reason why I started bringing clinicians in and being able to host a platform that kind of connects a skill set is because now men can take something back to the house and learn how to communicate with your children, learn how to communicate with laterally at work, learn how to whatever. It gives them a toolkit to now build their own competence so they can lead through action. Because otherwise, it's fight, flight, whatever. You just kind of like, you're playing it by ear. So yeah, and the four things that I would say the three things that I knew, but the four things that I actually, again, I'm gonna quote Bell Hooks again. Shout out to you, Ray, for like putting me on with that. But is the tools, and the tool can be language. It can be like how to identify self-awareness versus self-management. The self-management piece is the hardest. But then also like the community piece, right? So if you think about bridging conversation, that's what it's tasked to do. As a community, it teaches a skill, and it gives something that men can take back. But also, you mentioned it earlier, the permission granted. Right? So one of the dopest joints, I'll be honest, one of the dopest moments in bridging conversation, I had somebody who I brought in as my speaker. And when you bring people in, right? So Mav is lit because Mav will talk directly from the chest. Some people don't want to look away when they give me truth. And we all recognize as real. So if you're not giving me that sauce, I already know what time it is. So the speaker couldn't do it. I had a man in the room say, hey, look, I'm here because me and my son trying to rebuild our relationship. He saw me be physically aggressive with his mom 5 years ago. I put my hand on him multiple times, and I got into a fight because he was trying to pick up for his mom. So then, boom, that set the conversation off. You got 30 minutes of space, you hear a pin drop, and then you got other men start to affirm the fact that they've been in a similar situation. The therapist helps you make meaning of it, and then we have a tool about how do you identify, like when your emotions are regulated, like what coping skills do you want to introduce, opposed to what you normally have, all the things. So what you're talking about to me in terms of men leading through action, you mentioned emotional suppression does not equal lack of love.
Right.
When we don't have the ability to change our own situations, then we feel less than, and we start to pick up certain coping skills, different actions come in instead of the ones that we want to lead with. And if we don't keep teaching ourselves how to do it, shit for the sheriff.
So I'm curious, right? Because I think a lot of women can relate. I can too, and that I am a survivor. I say survivor now of being in a domestic violence situation with my son's father. And later on, after he matured, he said, he had been taught, you never let a woman outwork you, right? And so being ambitious, doing all the things that I was doing, definitely was like a hit at his manhood because he felt like he couldn't keep up. So once he had a setback, I was just excelling, right? Things were just happening. And you think about what you're talking about with enabling, and sometimes it's not even that a woman is enabling. She's just doing her. She's following after her dreams and goals, doing what she's doing. But the man is not doing that, or he has had things come and sort of trip him up. And it gets dysregulated, right? Disproportionate. The power dynamic shifts. You're supposed to be providing, making all the money. You lose your job, now it's her. And these societal constructs and what you trained and you learned to do, it is not equal in the house the way it's supposed to be for men to feel like he can lead. And then a woman is frustrated because she's not supposed to be doing these things. And then have an argument in the clash, right? And so I'm wondering, like, when that is transpiring, not from a therapist perspective, but I think from a real life, every day, what do men need, right? Because I can tell you what a woman needs in that moment, but I think we often are lost in how to support that and what to do, right? You want to step up, you want to be a fixer, you want to be a helper, but sometimes that it does not really land well, and it doesn't go well in some households.
I see enabling versus providership as two totally different things. What I meant by enabling was, how do you deserve to be treated in this situation versus what you'll allow. So, and I, honestly, I think some of the borders, what, you know, I don't play with the word toxicity because I think it's overused, but like, I don't know, I've been in relationships where they made like 400,000 a year, so I wasn't trying to chase that coin. Right? As long as I'm, you know, independent, self-sufficient, and ambitious, I'm sustained in that. Right? That doesn't make me feel less than. Right? Everybody got their thing. What I mean by it is, if there's an instinctive feeling that you feel like you deserve in a relationship, right? I think you mentioned it. Like, this is what you want to be loved on in terms of the quality of time you want, or like that's not receiving that, but also, not willing to have that accountability or to set your boundaries. I think that's the difference between what I mean by enabling versus providership. I know it's a scary line when they start talking about trash out, all that other stuff, like providership, whatever the gender role norms are. I'm more so talking about how you deserve to be treated as opposed to.
And I think I'm agreeing with you, and I'll add it in there that enabling from a female perspective can look like allowing the man to do whatever he wants to do. But if that's how he's leading and that's how he's showing up, then you have one or two choices. You either stay or you go. Right? And so often in these dynamics, some women, if this is the dynamic, you want to be there to be supportive because he might have lost his job, he's going through some things, whatever. This is where the enabling, I think, starts, right? Is that the not leaving and staying and tolerating and putting up with the not so great side of you, versus just, you know, going ahead and cutting it off and walking away.
Yeah, I think what you're describing, like support and help, and we kind of talk about this in the recovery field. It's supporting and helping, but also having healthy boundaries. Where enabling is helping with no boundaries. So sometimes when someone's being enabled, it means that you're like helping the person, but you're not having them do any accountability. And so the woman is supposed to work with you, not for you. They're supposed to work as a team and as a unit, just like the man is supposed to, you know, together, that's the acronym for team. Together, everyone achieves more. But for some reason, as a man, we think that we achieve more the more we do, and the woman does less. But together, everyone achieves more. So it's really going from that mindset of like, being your highest self versus your ego self, because the ego isn't going to allow the help to come in from the woman. The ego's not going to allow the help to come from our dukes, from a sister, because we're going to sit there and say, I got this. But a lot of times we don't have this, and can you get humble enough to sit there and say that you don't have this is really the biggest question. Like, you know,
that was the setup. Y'all asked me if I was going to set y'all up. That was the setup, right? A lot of women are struggling with what you're saying right now, right? Which is, do I leave or do I stay? Right? How do I support or how do I not support? If I'm saying how do I support you and he's not answering, he's emotionally shutting down, the household still gotta move, the bills still gotta be paid, these kids still gotta be picked up, but you're in a dark place, maybe you're depressed, right? Because men's depression looks a little bit different than women's depression, right? You know, sometimes it looks like cheating, sometimes it looks like drugs and alcohol, sometimes it's complete avoidance, shutdown. So I think, you know, when we think about strategies on how we can be better partners, I have a question up here. Are women loving men the way they actually need to be loved, or the way we think they do, right? And I think that is where the enablement comes in. Naturally, most women are nurturers. They want to take care of things. They want to try to come in and be motherly, right? Go ahead, Dan.
Oh, I was still processing.
I thought your face looked like you wanted to say something, so I paused. But if you process, you can jump in whatever.
I'll keep it simple. I think that most people love the way they want to be loved, right? I think that's just human instinct, right? So if mine's are affirmations, they're going into more quality time, physical touch, and I'm going to love on you like that. But yours might be gift giving, yours might be acts of service. So I think, as a default, that's not a shot at women. I think that's a people thing. I think most people may not digest what lands with you more, as opposed to, I know I feel good when I do this, so let me do that for you more.
Right.
And I don't think it's selfish.
Right.
I think it's naturally being considerate and then learning to be conscious about what that other person might need more.
But you guys are some really self-aware men, right? And I think you're well read, and when you're self-aware to this level, even if you have areas that you need to grow in, Matt said it earlier, he's aware of those things, even if he's still working through it. I think what a lot of women are faced with is men that are not self-aware, not emotionally mature enough to be able to do that. So women are taught to love, men are taught to survive. I would. That's the disconnect, right? But I don't necessarily agree with that.
That's a bar right there.
You know what I mean? So women are taught to love and men are taught how to survive, right?
Yeah.
And that's the disconnect. Black women in particular are saying that we've been in survival mode. You hear that a lot, right? That's the new, so independent, and a lot of us are constantly talking about not being able to find mates, and men are going to other races, Black men in particularly, and there's a disconnect in terms of how Black women are showing up in relationships. So if indeed that statement is true, if Black women are also taught to survive, and most men are taught to survive, there's also the disconnect in why we're not really connecting, right? If most women are taught to love, and most Black women are being taught to survive, how do we connect with men that are also being taught to survive? That's masculinity. Two people showing up in a masculine space.
Would you date a white too?
No. Have not, don't have interest. Thank you for putting me on spot though.
Oh, don't worry, you throwing all the questions out.
But you threw me on the spot. I had to be honest. I would love who I want to be with as a Black man. That's my desire. Now, I can't say the same for my male counterparts who happen to be Black. Most of the men that are in my circle have all dated outside their race.
I definitely am. I am. And I'll tell you, it wasn't something I wanted to do, especially growing up. I'm from Newark, by the way, Maryland. So when I grew up, dating, I came to Massachusetts, and I ain't gonna lie to you. As a PWI, I'm not making excuses either, but I fell in love with somebody, and then it kind of went from there. And even in the end, it took me 7 years to be able to just digest the fact that I was dating a white woman. You know what I mean? So it wasn't. I used to hate the stigma of those brothers that we seen as only wanting to date white chicks, because I know I got thrown into that category. So it's something I was constantly struggling with my identity with. The reason I asked you that though was because I heard an interesting stat that relationship dynamics that last the longest in terms of marriages. So of all racial and interracial marriages, the most successful marriages are ones with Black women and white men. And it's because of the privilege supposedly that the white men have, and then being able to uplift, honor, and put first the gender of the woman and then the racial dynamic of the woman.
And white men don't cheat.
Well, I would say as a therapist, I have both white women and Black women, and some are, in interracial relationships. I think the dynamics of men and women are not very different because of their race. I think the idea is coming from Westernized culture of what men should be. So Black men are being faced with that, white men are being faced with that, which is to be a provider, a leader, and this is the hierarchy, right? But primarily, most of my clients happen to be Black women. And I think Black women are communicating often of having challenges in this realm of how to love Black men, and there's a lot of single professional Black women. So partly of why I'm even having this show, right, is what are we missing? What is the disconnect? There are disconnects even in terms of interpersonal relationships, familiar relationships within people's families, right? Where women not feeling loved, not being protected, not feeling, number one unprotected person in the world is Black women, right? So how is that possible, right? And where are all the Black men in all of this, right? So
which is basically surviving versus living. So
and where does that come from? That we feel that we need to be hyper focused on survival.
I mean, I always tell people that, like, when people tell me they have survivor's guilt, how are you going to have survivor's guilt if you're now living? And so you need to, so surviving is all based off of character defects. Living is based off of spiritual principles. So the more you can live by spiritual principles and start to work on those character defects, the better the quality of life is going to get. So we have so many people surviving because they're not even, we're born with a spirit, but you're taught religion. But people aren't even aware of like spiritual principles and what they are. We're just so busy living by character defects because that seems like the norm, to live by fear, judgment, self-hate, and all this type of stuff. Like we're sometimes comfortable in that chaos. So for me, I think you have to transition from being in survivor mode, which is based off of like always just scrambling and grinding, to living by spiritual principles, which is actually aligning. But one of the, go ahead.
We are the Urban Heat. Expect the unexpected.
I like the
Unfiltered
background when you're talking. It's therapeutic for me.
and beyond.
Yeah.
Heat,
I like the way you can hear it.
and iHeart Station.
You ain't like that question, huh?
All right, y'all. We're back. You're listening to Conversation with Coach about mathematics and James Lambert the third.
And we're talking about data women from men.
So we got two more, segments to wrap up the show. Hope y'all still with me. Still with me?
Go ahead.
Still with me. So I always talk about bet on self moments. So we got bet on self moment, and we got Coach's Corner, and the show's all done, y'all. So
Everybody hanging in there.
I love y'all hanging in here. Y'all liking this episode. I wonder if it's me or if it's just I got these brothers in here. Y'all came for them. Y'all didn't come for Coach.
All right.
So bet on self moments, right? And I think the way I want to really frame this, these are those moments both where you finally say to yourself, if not me, then who? Right? And if not now, then when? It's those moments where you really decide to be the person in your destiny. If you got the volume, turn the volume down on your phone. But
Keep telling me there's an echo. I don't know what the echo is, y'all. It sounds good on my end. But
those defining moments, right, where you decide to be the narrator of your own story and get in the driver's seat, right? And choose healing growth or change when it's uncomfortable. And y'all already been talking about that, right? Recognizing and taking accountability to say, how is this behavior that I'm operating in right now showing up 5 years from now? Where am I taking my life? What's the vision for my life, right? It takes a lot of accountability. So if you had to frame like your own bet on self moments, what do you think for you now and for you, James, that you've decided, you know what, I'm gonna change. I'm gonna do better.
For me personally, I have to always sit there and say I'm going to do better, because now going through this process, this immense process, and being self-aware, I can see how my choices really affect other people when I make the wrong ones. So I have an illness that causes me to be compulsive and impulsive and make choices off of compulsive impulse. And I don't always play the whole tape of everything that can take place if I make this compulsive and impulsive decision. So for me, it's just really just navigating every day and saying to myself, is this choice only going to benefit me and hurt someone else? Or is this choice I'm going to make not just going to benefit me, but is it also going to help others? And that also comes now to like being a full-time father and seeing the emotions of like raising a little daughter and seeing how she feels when her emotions are being challenged. And I can see now how I have to make healthier choices when dealing with any space when it comes to other people, and just realize that 5 years from now, this choice I'm making right now, is it going to hurt me, or is it going to help me? Is it going to hurt me, or is it going to help someone else? And just really be trying to like play the whole tape before I actually make the choice. I know the people that play chess, it takes 7 seconds to think about their move before they move. They win 70% more than people that don't. So if I can just take that little bit of time to think about my choices before I make them, I think 5 years from now, I'll be living a better quality of life.
Yeah.
5 years from now, I'm gonna call them scientific. I ain't calling them math no more. I would say for me, leaning into like faith versus fear. I think that I always thought that the way I was living before I had a level of control to it, and then entrepreneurs, I was afraid to dive on myself for that, and then, oops, it happened by force. And that first year and a half was scary as hell, because I definitely had to tap into savings that had liquefied, and after that, I haven't had to touch it. I've been in the black ever since. So, and learning how to monetize, just all the things that we're so fearful now are starting to become normalized, right? And I don't have, things aren't transactional anymore, right? And that's the same thing in relationships. That's the same thing across the board. So I just say, sometimes betting on something, to me, if I had to bring it down to a moment, it realizes that there's a reaction I have about the decision I gotta make, and in that moment realizing that which way I'm gonna go left, I'm gonna go right, and if I can pick that course properly, that's better myself. Because when I try to control too much, man.
Funny thing is, there's so much of life that we don't have control over. And being to go into your point about spirituality, you can't have fear and faith at the same time, right? And when you really start thinking about living in your purpose and understanding that, you stop worrying about and trying to control things. You start being more authentic about your feelings and your actions and get in alignment, right? Because I think that's what it is. If you say one thing and do something else, you kind of know your mind and your spirit is not in alignment. When people are anxious or they're depressed, a lot of times they're misaligned. Things that they're doing are not in alignment with their core of who they want to be, who they're becoming, or who they used to be. Like there's something off. So you guys are definitely nailing that on the head. So we're going to go into the gorgeous point. I'm also going to tie that into the final question that I asked you guys, which is, dear women, right? What you want them to know? What do you want? What do you appreciate about them? And, what do you want them to know about you and how to move forward? Because a lot of women are looking for guidance. And I think that the best way to do it is to have therapeutic, healthy relationships with men that are not romantic. I'm going to say that again. Have healthy, transparent relationships with men that are not romantic. And I say the same thing for men. We often think that men and women can't be friends. And that's something that a lot of my male clients bring, is that every woman that's friendly with them or they get close to, they end up trying to hit on them or have sex with them. And that changes the dynamics of the relationship, especially if that's not really what you want, right? And that's not the person you want. So that's my take on the romantic piece. All right. So Coach's Corner. My last and final segment. Y'all still with me? Y'all good? Everybody good out there? Coach's Corner. Right? Here we go. It's a moment we reflect, we gather key takeaways, and you leave with something to carry forward on your own better on self journey, right? All my women and my men, because there's men out there that want to have better relationships with the women in their life, and there's women out there that want to have better relationships with the men in their life. Again, this is not solely about romance, y'all. Because y'all get on these and everybody start going into romance. Truthfully, the better your relationships are that are not romantic, the better your relationship with yourself, the better partner you will be. I will say that again. The better your relationship with yourself and your other relationships, the better partner you'll be. If you don't have people in your life that call you out, you don't have parents that called you out, if you weren't taught about emotions and self-regulation, you're not going to go into a relationship doing that stuff. Your partner then has to be your pseudo parent, which sucks for partners to have to deal with that. Having an emotionally unintelligent and immature partner is hard, and there's the enabling. So what do we want the people to know, right? How can women support men better?
So I think one of the pieces is just knowing the individual. Like each individual is going to have a different way that they will be able to communicate and relate in the relationship. One of the things that I've noticed is you want to see how a man deals with his mother, because normally most men have healthy relationships with their mothers, and study the healthiest relationship that a man has with a woman in his life. And if that healthiest relationship, there has to be something in there that's the main ingredient that you can pull in the relationship. And that's why it's hard for me in relationships. My mother's still alive. My mother's the bomb. You know what I'm saying? I ain't never been in love with a woman the way I love my mother.
And that might be the problem.
And that's exactly what the problem is, because I be in a relationship and I be like this. Yo, if you ain't know how to act right, yo, my mother's the bomb. I don't even need you. You know what I mean?
Right.
But that's like kind of a bad thing. But really, if I could figure out how to deal with partners with the same communication and honesty, understanding and compassion and patience that I have with my mother, but for some reason, I've never been able, because of an emotional situation that happened when I was younger, which, that's where a lot of narcissism comes from, because it's an emotional component that happened when you were a child, where no longer do you trust to give yourself to people in the full capacity. But for me, it's like most of the women that I've been closest to in my life and had that potential to be in the healthiest relationship are normally people that I've been able to engage with that are like my moms. You know what I'm
Mm.
saying? And so
Mhm.
that's one of the pieces. But my mother was also my biggest enabler for the bulk of my life. So a lot of times I preyed on enablers. And I know that enablers keep me sick, and people that keep me accountable keep me well.
Mm.
But a lot of times my mentality when I was in the street life was like, if you're holding me accountable, you're too much. And the shorty that's going to let me use her whip, she's going to put all the stuff I want to buy on her credit card. You know what I'm saying? She just wants me to look good at her Christmas party and to post pictures on social media. That's the most I got to do. And just help bring in the groceries. That's normally what I preyed on, because I preyed on enablers when I was growing up. My mother was my biggest enabler. But also in the same token, the way I'm able to communicate and see value and the respect level I have for my moms, I just need to figure out how to bring that to my relationships too. But my mother's just so the bomb that it's like,
You hear that double-edged sword?
yeah.
She's enabling and she's the bomb.
But not anymore. She went to Al-Anon and that switched up. But she's
Mhm.
still like in my corner. But my mother's in my life on a high volume. Like if
So she-
72 hours goes by, and if 72 hours goes by, we have to communicate. I'm still like, when I was incarcerated, I told my mother I need to go back into your womb. And I know I can't go back in physically, but I need to go back into your womb mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, because I need to reconnect with like what I was when I was in that womb and spend some time by myself. And so I just think for me that one of the ways is, if you know of like a male that has a friend, or the way that a male if he has a healthy relationship with his mother, that can be a good way that a woman can sit there and say, this is maybe what the type of space that he needs in order for it to be nurturing, healthy, and sexual, and intimate, and fun, and friendly. So there's so many rules now with relationships. This isn't like the Brady Bunch no more. This is 2026. Relationships has changed. There's nothing wrong with your man living over here and you living over there, and you all share space 3 times a week, but then you got your own space. I don't know if I'm just saying.
So we
Right.
didn't went somewhere else.
Yeah, but I'm just saying.
But I feel you though.
Yeah,
but
yeah,
I
yeah.
think this goes back to defining your bet on self moment, even in your relationships, right? And your however you want to live your life, living it on your own terms and finding out what works for you and your partner, and
Yeah.
not what society says works.
And I think it's also identifying, because a lot of women will say, well, what do you need for me to love you? You can't ask a man that doesn't even know what love is, what type of love he needs.
Right.
So first, I think it's people coming together and even defining what love is,
Right.
and then seeing what's the need to get to the love that we've defined. Because if you're asking me for something that I don't even know what it is, I'm thinking they're telling you. Most of the people are confusing infatuation and lust with love. And that there's nothing. Infatuation and love is just obsession. There's really nothing healthy there. Love is being able to like not get an answer to a text right away and still feel comfortable with that you're not getting that text. I do that stuff on purpose because everything just kind of gets robotic. You have to text in the morning or there's something going on.
Right.
You have to text at nighttime if there's something going on. That's just roboticism, and that's when the relationship gets dull. But I really think that like defining and figuring out what the love is between two people, and then what roads can we take to create that space so that that love becomes healthy. Because a lot of people are asking a man, what type of love do you need? And we don't even know what love is because we've never experienced it. But Pops ain't around, and if there was never an example of what love really is, how do you even know what it is to know what you want?
Well, I'm going to say context clues, right? There's a difference between fixing and listening. I'm going to also say that we have to stop using that statement as a crutch, like we're living in a bubble, right? Because you know what you don't want, you know what love doesn't feel like. So what's the opposite of that? I think we use that as a rationalization, we intellectualize it. I don't know what love is. I've never experienced it before. Bruh, sis, come on.
Gotcha.
Right? We're at these big ages, and these will be the same people that are judgmental and can break everything down in other people's lives, but then will tell you they don't know what love is, or they don't know what love feels like because they've never experienced it. If that's the case, then everything that we do, we would be saying the same thing for. It's certain things we pick and choose to use that as our rationale and as our excuse. Because when we have kids, people are like, I love my kid. As soon as they came out, I was instantly in love. And I'm doing everything opposite of what my parents did.
I don't think if folks haven't experienced it and haven't seen tangibly, like look at take it away from love and look at finances. A lot of people don't know how to grow financially, even though they could be 50 years old. So
right, but you also know how to go find out.
Do they?
Right?
Do they?
That's
That's
my
what I'm
point.
saying. I don't
So
know.
here's where I go back to, right?
Yeah.
There's so many things that people do not have anybody teach them how to do.
Yeah.
Set up a Facebook account, go get on Instagram. I can go through a list of things that we teach ourselves. If it's important enough to you, you will go seek the knowledge and you will go figure it out. We use a lot of things as a cop-out, y'all.
I do respectfully disagree because I think God knows how many men I can't sit down and get them to grow their capacity sitting with a book for 20 minutes a day.
Yeah,
Right.
I'm not just saying through
So-
a book, though. I'm
No, but I'm
saying
just-
by asking, right? If it's something you want to learn.
And I didn't finish my point, and I
Go
hear you
ahead.
pushing
I'm
back
sorry.
on me, and I'm
Okay.
still going to say I stated the course in saying I don't think that without the tutelage or without the discipline of taking the time to understand, or you talked about a therapist,
Right.
you know, I don't think you'd have as many therapists or the need for if folks could do it on their own. So I stand 10 toes down and saying I don't think everybody can do it just because they're the age of it. I don't think that's wisdom. I think that's just folks growing older. Can I answer the question?
So
You got the answer?
I must just to clarify, I'm saying that if you saying you don't know how to do something is not a good excuse to stay there. I'm saying that there's enough resources and tools and insight and context clues to push yourself beyond that. I think when we just say, I don't know how to love, I don't know what it is, it keeps you stuck and you don't build the capacity is what I'm saying. I'm not saying that you don't need help. I'm saying I want to learn how to love, saying, how do I love, saying, what does love look like, and looking for examples of it is more a willingness to learn than to just stay in this place of, I don't know how to do it because I ain't never seen it before.
Okay.
That's all. But
Okay.
you can answer the question.
Damn, I forgot what the question was now. What was the question? Oh, you said, repeat the question. Also, somebody said, can you turn my mic up? Test.
Yeah, your mic is actually up. I don't know why he's acting like he can't talk louder.
No,
But I'm gonna turn it all the way
we
up.
good. We good. I'll just talk directly into the
Well,
mic.
Yes.
I need a charger over it. I'm getting low. What? I might need a charger.
Okay. We almost done.
All right.
We got sidetracked. So the question was about what we want people to take away. We're at the end.
You said how do women teach?
Yeah. So what do we want women
About love.
How do women love men or something like that?
Yeah, we got far away from the question because mathematics talked about love. So here was the question. How do women support men better?
Got you. And I think in years past, I would have answered this question in so many different ways. One of the things I'll say, the sexiest thing about a woman is how she values herself. And I think in terms of supporting men, often and I'll go back to whether it be the boundary setting or I forgot how we started this whole conversation earlier, but leading with that example of expectations, I think that's one of the strongest ways to support a man. I'm not talking about shooting a man when he's down per se, but think about it. If there's a breakup that happens, right? Or you away from your shorty for a while, she get back in the gym, she in this program now, right? You know what I'm saying? She done, cut down the fat of her living expenses. That's called the glow up, right? So when we see that, we be like, wait, I want
Ladies,
back in.
do y'all
You know
hear this?
So what I'm
That's all
saying is though,
saying.
think about it. If those things are constantly nurtured
Go
throughout
ahead.
their course of relationship,
Yep.
there's a certain level of elevation that I think that we both start to experience from.
I got you,
Right.
and you are absolutely right. Which
So-
is why I tell all my clients, focus in on yourself, switch your energy, and stop trying to think for the man and think for yourself.
So I think when you talk about how do you love a man or how do you point to a man, this, that, and the third, yeah, I think it could be hey, I'm going as you lead by example and pour into us. I think a lot of it is if you keep your value of self first, right? There's some things that we're always going to be non-compromising about.
Bet on self,
And
ladies.
things that we want to converse through, like the difficulties and whatnot, and being able to have those conversations up front. I think there's a level into being able to damn, if I want that, hold on, if I want to make the team, I got to go run these miles, right? I think that's what I've kind of learned the most about it, because I've lost quite a bit emotionally. You know what I mean? I've taken some L's, and I think they've been self-inflicted in a lot of ways. And sometimes when I get outside, I went back in, or I think I went back in, but it wasn't strong enough to keep me until I started seeing things and wanting to be around other things that I'm like, damn, I'm going to work towards that. You know what I mean? Like I said, having a vision of what I think a family, what I want my family dynamics to look like. Now I'm changing my courses of action to see how do I get there? You know what I'm saying? So
that's my, You just nailed it. That's what I'm saying. There comes a point where you make a decision that this isn't working for you. Even if it's, I don't know what I'm doing, I need help. And I think that's the self-awareness that I'm taking away from this, right? Is that support is collaborative. It shouldn't be enabling. You should be able to say, hey, this is what I need. This is what I'm willing to do. And if the other person is not receptive to that, you could be being manipulated. It may not be a healthy relationship. And James, you just said it. You have to have enough worth in yourself to understand, I'm going to have to hold this person to the fire. And that may mean I have to step off of this and say next. And if the man really wants you, you'll glow up. Guess what he's going to do? He's going to step his game up.
Glow up.
I mean, did I not get that?
Yeah,
Am I not taking away what I'm supposed to take away?
Yeah, no.
I think this dependence on not wanting to be alone, right? The dependence on you can't be happy in life unless you have a partner keeps a lot of people in situations that maybe are not healthy. And it also doesn't seem to be how men want to be loved. It sounds like men want to be held accountable. And that's what helps you grow.
And this might be somewhat of a tangent, but I think the girl next door, the Sanaa Lathans, those are the ones I was looking at as a kid. Like, yeah, I want that, right? As opposed to, you know, like the fake this and the fake that and all those other things. And I'm not saying women can't do, like, no, I'm not trying to say that. What I'm saying is I think self-love and self-value is going to look different to everyone. And to me, like somebody appreciating exactly how they came in, right? What Drake say? Sweatpants or whatever, no makeup on. That's when you're the prettiest. I hope that you don't take it wrong. Like, so I think somebody that can live and exude in that, to me, that's fire. Where we going next?
So again, ladies, this is the last day of Women's History Month. And I really, really hope that what we take from this is to value ourselves more. I think the fellas are even saying, ladies, value yourself more. By you valuing yourself more, it's a reflection. It's like a mirror back to our men, right? And also I'm hearing we need to listen, right? We need to listen and be reflective to how you want to be loved. But sometimes if the brother say he don't know how, you got one or two choices, ladies.
Believe that, man.
Right? Is to start to demonstrate what love looks like. And that may mean you need to be at a higher vibration yourself, where you don't take him not knowing how to love to mean that you should take it personal, but love yourself. He'll see how love looks by how you love yourself, how you take care of yourself, and reflect that back. And of course, it sounds like you're also saying don't take no mess. Don't be manipulated. Yeah. I mean, y'all, you know, I know y'all might be giving the cheat code, and some brothers might be mad at y'all for this conversation. They might be upset, like, yo, what you doing?
Nah, we didn't get we didn't get too deep on that.
You know what you doing? You give it all.
I'm
all
a congratulator and participator, never a hater. So, you know, I don't think we went. You know, well, I think we did talk about the accountability piece and the self-awareness piece, and the pain has to get great enough for you to be willing to open up those doors.
Yep.
To get because the first letter in help is H, because you have to be humble to get the help.
Yes.
And if there's no humility there, how you're never going to be able to get the help.
Yep.
Scientific,
so I feel like we're all saying a lot of the same
stuff, exactly,
in different ways, which again is understanding that commonality, that the way you frame it might sound different to me, but what's the basis of it, right? So, men, as we close out, dear women, finish the sentence.
Go ahead, cuz, what you got?
Dear women.
Dear women, I want you to understand that sometimes, brothers, man, we have good hearts, but we just don't have good actions to match the hearts that we have, the good hearts that we have. And just try to be patient, try to be compassionate, try to be understanding, but also, like you were saying, hold us accountable. And you know, a lot of brothers, man, we got these broken inner childs, and we don't know how to navigate those emotions that are coming from the broken inner child. So even though you're seeing brothers, it may be 30 years old, 25 years old, 35 years old, we don't have the maturity level to maybe be in the same place that you might be in. So I always tell people that sometimes if you're dealing with a brother, man, that's trying, but he's not getting there quick enough, the woman has the option to slow down so that you can allow the man to catch up. But also while he's catching up, make sure that even if he's only making 1% of progress a day over the course of the year, that's 36.5% of progress that he's going to make to be healthy in that relationship, opening up the door to the next year. You know what I'm saying? So just, you
1%,
know,
get 1% better every day.
If he adds 1%, get an improvement in effort, 1% better in the cheating, 1% better in the communication, 1% better in the finances.
You
He's 1%. He's 1% better, and you know what I'm saying. And making sure that he's taking the trash out without you having to ask. With him and stepping up and doing what he has to do with the children, because it took me 45 years to figure out, and the Nurturing Fathers program taught me how to be a father. So, like I said, from a boy to a man, and from a baby daddy to a father, these are bridges, like the brother has, bridging conversations. You have to have a conversation and a bridge to be able to get from a boy to a man, and from a baby daddy to a father, and it's just that maturity level.
Mm-hmm.
You know
All right, Mr. Lambert, you up next.
Yes, sir.
So we got to pick one.
No, dear women.
But you said, so you gave us 3. And you
Yeah, but you can like put it all in there and how
I'm gonna pick. I'm gonna just do 2 parts. Dear women, I appreciate your strength in living earnestly, and I think that women have always, at least the women I've experienced, have kind of set forth in terms of like they made their mistakes out loud. They set the tone in terms of how they want to be treated later, after, out loud. Like, and it kind of that's why I've really developed a sense of saying, damn, this is how you hold your expectations, because they course corrected in real time. And I think a lot of brothers are afraid to show our errors. And, you know, women, like, you know, as soon as y'all make a mistake, you know, it could be, and I'm not just talking about physically, but, you know, it's catastrophic for y'all. Whereas we get, you know, we get grace in a lot of ways. And then the second one I say is, dear women, what I wish you understood was your value of self is your greatest beauty. I'm just,
come on now.
I stand firm on that one. But that joint that's the sexiest thing about a woman, is like how she values herself. And I promise you, we didn't have all the baddie jumps, whatever, right? Then I'm gonna just be vulgar for a second, but the fattest ass ain't gonna keep you.
Come on now.
I think it's definitely like that's Sanaa Lathan. That's why I go back to. It's just that woman who values herself like that, man.
Yep.
So.
All right, y'all. I appreciate you, Mathematics. I appreciate you, Mr. Lambert.
Appreciate you, live.
Women's History Month is not just about honoring women. It's about reclaiming power. And what I'm taking away from this is that understanding how we love, lead, and relate together is how we heal. It's not just personal, it's relational. So all of this is interconnected. I appreciate you, brothers, for coming and having this conversation with me. I hope all the listeners, shout out to everybody on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and iHeartRadio. We appreciate you for tuning into another episode of Conversations with Coach La La La. I see you. She's I'm gonna put her up here.
Ooh.
She like Shea Butter. Shea Solutions 52. Thank you, my sister. You have been awesome. Make sure you come back next week. I'm gonna have to bring you on the show, girl. You got all the comments up in here.
Who you got next week, by the way?
Good question. I might be out of town. We're gonna see. It might be a replay. Let's see. If I'm in New York, I ain't gonna have a show, y'all. I'll let you outside. Yeah, you know. See, you put me on the spot again. See, I can't even lie. I'm such an honest person.
I can ask questions?
No, you did, and I answered you. I might not be here next week because I'm supposed to be in New York.
Turn it up. Turn it up.
Listen, I deserve. I deserve to turn up. And I deserve. So shout out to you guys. Can you just tell them how to find y'all on social media? Make sure they're following everybody.
Mathematics.
Yeah. So I'm motivated by Mathematics on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, and I'm Mathematics MX Grands on Facebook. But I also have a website, motivatedbymathematics.com, and you can get to all my social media platforms from there and my email as
That's
well.
What's up.
Peace.
And he can be hired, right?
Yeah, for booking, motivational speaking, workshops, fatherhood, recovery, and performing, music, poetry, you name it.
Yes.
One-stop shop.
Yep. And Mr. Lambert.
IG, social media, Third Exposure, 3RD Exposure, email THIRD Exposure, website dropping ASAP. It'll be 3RD Exposure.com. So yeah, we get into it in all ways. And when I say engagement specialist, I know a lot of people be rolling their eyes like, what does that mean? So I do about 20 events a month. So everything from like political debates all the way to these conversations, Juneteenth fiestas. But anyway, we try to do those 2 things, encourage innovation and see how do you maximize the space. So let's get to it.
I love it. I love it. Thank you, Shotgun Sandy. That's my radio sister. I appreciate you always tuning in and sharing the live. Make sure y'all share this live. Again, we're ending Mother's History Month. Women's History Month. Mother's Day is coming though, but I appreciate the conversation. Thank you for everybody tuning in. Make sure you come back next week for another episode of Conversations with Coach La. And I appreciate you, brothers. Have a good night, everybody.
Peace to the queen.
See y'all next week.
Peace.
Good night.
I deserve.
Nancy, Smokehouse. It's the urban heat. Shout out to Coach
Kicking
Live.
it with Coach LA, it's time to listen to conversations that's gonna keep you winning. Sunday nights at 10 p.m. on the urban heat.